Okay, Grandma. First of all, what's your name?
Ober.
Okay, how many kids do you have?
I raised 5. I have 4 of my own.
Okay, and what was the size of your family that you had?
I was an only child.
Mother and father? Okay. Now, what is your definition of poverty?
Poverty, to me now, is quite different than it was in those days. But yet, as a child, I didn't know what poverty was. We had plenty of food. We moved on to a farm when the Depression came, and we were able to raise all the food we needed and animals that we used for meat. And as a child growing up, we had plenty to eat. But of course, we heard of people that didn't have food to eat. They had to stand in bread lines in the big cities.
And you would consider that poor?
And I would consider them poor. They were people without work. They had no income.
And what do you consider poverty now?
Poverty today is looked at in a different way because most of the people get some help from the government or from the city in different organizations. We're living in a much more affluent society today. That doesn't mean that there aren't poor people among us, but if we measure what we have today and we look at what they have, we know that they don't have as much as we have today.
So, if someone didn't have, do you consider poverty not having money then? Not being able to have?
As much money as you need to get.
So the basic necessities?
Yes.
If they can't afford food and shelter and clothing, then they're poor?
Yes, then they're poor, then they have to get help.
So if they can't afford those but not afford the extras, they're not poor?
I don't think that a person has to get all the luxuries and the extras. A poor family, they might consider themselves poor, but if they have plenty to eat, they may not have the latest fashions to wear. But I don't consider them poor.
What is your strongest memory from childhood that you have of not getting that cancer life? Like Christmas story, you know that one?
Well, I guess it's true that the only thing that I can think of when I hear about as a child that I only got one gift, well, it was 2. It was a doll and an orange. And so we didn't even have a tree then. But to me, that as a child, I was happy that I got that much.
You didn't have people to compare to?
No, I didn't have anybody compared to it. We had just moved on to a farm. And after my dad lost his job. And before that, why we had a big Christmas tree and lots of presents. I was the only small child in the family, so I was spoiled.
Okay, growing up, would you have ever considered yourself to be poor?
Not really poor. I think growing up, it was different kind of days. We didn't have the abundance of everything that we have today. And I didn't think that I was poor, even into high school and all, because everybody else was about on the same level. And, my mother sewed, so I always had homemade clothes. And I didn't know any different. I was just a happy little girl.
What was the kind of surroundings that you grew up in? Was it farmland and
Yes.
most farmers?
Yes, it was in a farming area. And I had lots of fun on the farm. And I could ride the horses, and I learned to drive the horses to help my dad. He would we would pick up the hay, and it would come up on a wagon, and he would stand me up on the front of the wagon and then pile the hay over top of me.
Okay, so you didn't consider yourself poor because you saw the people around you and they had the same amount that you had?
Yes, many not as much. Many poor families. We were close to a little town, and there was a whole section of town there that were very poor people, and they probably had enough to eat. Um,
If you had had the media influence that we have today, seeing the rich families and stuff on TV and the radio, would you have considered yourself poor then? Would that have changed your mindset?
Not too much, because when you're young, you don't compare yourself, and so everybody else is about on the same level as far as dress, and of course we knew that there were some that were better off than we were, but we had plenty of food because we raised our own food.
Do you ever consider family when you think of poverty? Do you think, well, you might not have the food, shelter, and clothing, but at least you have family, so you're not poor in that?
Yes. I think maybe I might have considered myself, I wouldn't use the word poor, but since I was an only child, I sometimes felt like I lacked something, because when I saw other families having such a good time together, I mean, they just played games, simple games, played ball and stuff like that.
And you didn't have it.
And I didn't have it. And I was always excited when somebody came and I got to play.
Okay. As a child, what were the things that made you happy? Or today, a 16-year-old would get a car, what were the things then?
What age do you want me?
Any.
As a child? Well, my uncle, it was my great uncle and aunt had raised my mother, and so they were very good to us, and Uncle had a good job, and so they would take us on picnics about every other week. On Sunday they would take us, and they took us to Niagara Falls, and we rode on the boat from Cleveland over to the falls overnight, and then we went to Canada one time on the ship, and they had money enough to do that.
Did you work hard growing up?
Yes, I did. I had to work hard, although my dad was a hard worker, but I had to help him some. I remember especially one day I had been out uncovering the corn. What happens when they cultivated the corn with horses and everything, sometimes some of the little plants would get covered up. We had to go through with a hoe and uncover them. And it was so hot that day that when I came in, I had like a fainting spell. And I just remember my mother telling my dad, "Now she can't go back out, it's too hot."
So what kind of jobs did you do?
Well, I gathered the eggs, and I helped to clean out the stables. And I had learned to milk a cow myself. We had cows to milk. Of course, I was too small to harness the horses and things like that. But
okay. And do you how do you look at poverty today, like the poor people, the homeless in our society? Do you consider them to be lazy or misfortunate, unlucky? What do you think of that?
I think they're all unfortunate, and especially if they don't have a desire to help themselves. Too many people today in our society expect it to be handed to them, and then they don't really want to get out and earn it. But, in my day, a lot of men went out and cut the grass along the road. They did it by hand with a scythe. And where today we have all kinds of equipment to do those things. But that was better than them just getting food for nothing. They did earn it in that respect.
Help at some points?
The only help that was ever given was when farmers would help each other at the time when the crops came in, or when they would thresh their grain.
Okay. Was money an important thing to you growing up?
Not really, although I knew that it was worth something, because my mother would take me to see her grandfather, and that'd be my great-grandfather. He was from England, and he would always give me a silver dollar. And so I thought I was rich when I had those silver dollars, and I saved my money, and I started a little bank account, and we didn't have many extra dollars.
Not in abundance, but enough. What was the deciding factor of happiness for you and your family? What made your family happy?
I think when the family would get together to celebrate somebody's birthday, and because we were all farmers, and everybody was hardworking, and we just enjoyed each other's company. And it didn't have to be, a big expensive thing, but somebody would just bake a cake at home, have popcorn and things like that.
Do you consider yourself poor today?
No, not at all. I am comfortable. I don't have a lot of extra money, but I'm comfortable. I can pay my bills, and I can go to the store and buy what I need, and I can buy some to help some of the poor people.
Yeah, I'll give you time. Okay. Where have your views of poverty and what is poor come from?
My views of poverty are maybe a little different when I see that there are able-bodied people that don't want to work, but they just don't want to help themselves. And then I think that they're losing out all the way around. And if they could help themselves, they would find out that more people would help them too. And it's, you can make do without some things. There's just the necessities of life that you have to get, and we have many organizations today that will help the poor people.
Do you feel you learned a lot of lessons by growing up the way that you did?
Yes, I did.
More than others?
Yes, I feel like I learned a lot more the value of life and learned to work. And so many young people today don't know, they don't have to work, they don't have to get out and get a job. And they really don't value that experience of learning to work and helping out even. There are poor families where the kids all have to go out to work in order to make ends meet.
So do you think society is a lot different than what it was back then?
I think it is. I think we're a little more spoiled. We have too much. Now we don't appreciate what we have. We just kind of think, well, everybody's got it, and, the more you get, the happier you are, but that's not always the case. It's not always in things that we have. It's our attitude, and we shouldn't be wasteful in any way.
So, poverty to you means not having the basic necessities?
Yes, real poverty that had stemmed back in the early Depression years.
Because a lot of kids today will think it's not being able to get that new car.
That's not poverty.